Welcome to The Change, a podcast about the changes in life that shake, break, and make us. I'm Laura, a 45-year-old writer, podcaster, and mum who has until recently always loved change.
And I'm Kathy, a 53-year-old writer, podcaster, and mum, and change is actually my kryptonite. We acknowledge the traditional owners of country throughout Australia on which this podcast is recorded and recognise the continuing connections to lands, waters and communities.
We pay our respects to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultures and elders past and present. Hi, Kathy.
Hey, Laura. So, tell me, who have we got on today?
Today, we have the wonderful Anne Stevens. She is a woman in her 60s who has been an English teacher for many, many years. She's also a mum of 2 sets of twins, which is quite incredible. Yeah, in and of
I had
itself.
one set of twins was enough, right?
Yeah, she's 2 boys, 2 girls. And though some of you may well know her as the mum of Clare and Jessie Stevens, our colleagues from our days at Mamma Mia, 2 very accomplished women, authors, podcasters, wonderful women, and now their mothers. So Anne is now a grandmother to 2 girls. She loves traveling, she loves reading, she loves movies, she loves the theatre. She just loves spending time with her beautiful family. She does say she could still be better at cooking, which is a little bit of an in-joke for those that are a part of the Mamma Mia Out Loud community online. But basically, she loves socialising, she loves a chat, she loves a good laugh. Anne Stevens, we can't wait to talk to you on The Change. Hi, Anne. Thank you so much for joining us on The Change.
Oh, thanks for having me.
We're very excited to have you here.
Very excited.
You're a mum, you've got 2 sets of twins, 2 girls, 2 boys, and recently you became a grandmother twice. And we're really interested in knowing how being a grandmother is different, better, or worse even than being a mum. Tell us all about grandmotherhood.
It's been surprising in a lot of ways. It's brings up emotions that I wasn't expecting.
Mhm.
The wait for the babies to be born, because both girls had very long labours,
Yep.
and waiting for that news that babies were born safely was incredibly emotional. I just thought, things go through your head. Worst case scenario, something goes wrong and you know that it will change your daughter's lives forever.
Mhm.
And so you sort of got to push that out of your head, fill your head with positive thoughts that millions of healthy babies are born every day, and reassure yourself of that. And then since then, it's been just beautiful as an observer. So you get all the love and affection and amazement, and without all the responsibility and the jobs that come along with it. So you can just enjoy. Yeah, I'm just blown away. I can't get enough photos. I can't get enough time with them. It's blown my mind. It's great.
They're
Aw.
beautiful, beautiful baby girls. Yeah.
I imagine seeing the joy between the girls as well, because they were so close before they had children, and then having children only 6 months apart, and all of those things. It's such a joy to see them blossom as mothers. I know Laura and I have both watched them from the sidelines as they are blossoming into their motherhood, and we had Jessie on and we spoke with Jessie about her experience of those early months of motherhood, and she really is just blossoming into that next stage of her life where you just find something different in yourself when you have children, I guess. Yeah.
To watch them loving it so much, and I hope that's a reflection of how they were brought up. That
Yeah.
motherhood's not this terrible burden and list of jobs to do and everything. That you just have this emotional connection to this thing that you have to protect and help to thrive. And my husband's funny, he said the other day, they're really quite good at it, aren't they? I thought that was hilarious.
Well, they've got good role models in you and Peter, and like they.
Well, we hope so. We made mistakes and we stuffed a lot of things up too. But when you see the joy, you hope that that is because there is a real connection and they get it.
When we're thinking about raising children, how do you think raising children in the years between when you had two sets of twins, and as a mother of twins, one set of twins was enough. I had a 3-year-old and a set of twins, so that was enough for me, but you had to go one better and do two sets of twins, and I think there's only kind of 2 years between the two sets of twins. And then watching how parents raise children today, what do you think you're learning from your children, and what do you think that potentially they can learn from your many years of parenting experience?
One of the big differences that I've noticed is the amount of information they have access to. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think, birth plans and those kind of things can be scoffed at, but I think they're actually really, really important to prepare yourself emotionally
Mhm.
for, one of the most amazing experiences of your life. So yeah, the information they have access to is really what I've noticed. Big, big difference. And I think that that's different from advice. I think advice can be really confusing.
Mhm.
But information, you can look it up, you can sit with it, you can decide whether to take it on or not. I've seen gadgets that would have been life changing had I had them all those years ago. Even I noticed the other day, they have a little bowl that sits on top of the tray on the high chair, and the bowl sticks to the tray.
No, yes.
Well, all I ever did was pick bowls up off the floor.
Me too, and
Because
me too.
kids would not just they wouldn't just throw food on the floor, they'd throw the bowl and the
Mhm.
spoon and anything else.
Mhm.
And now to actually that to me is life-changing, mind-blowing stuff. The swaddles, the white
Yes.
noise,
Yeah.
and these things work. If I saw them using gadgets and whatever, that weren't working, I'd be saying, "What on earth are you doing?"
Mm,
But they're working.
mm,
Yeah.
These things, they calm babies, and, Claire was in when she was born, she was in hospital for about a week, longer than Jess,
Mhm.
mm.
and when, we got her home, before we took her home, the nurses said she's really used to noise because she was in a busy
Course, yeah.
yeah, she was in a busy, hospital, whatever they call it, ICU, but it wasn't really ICU, it was just 'cause she
Yeah,
was little.
NICU, yeah.
Uh
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and they said she's used to light and noise. And so when we came home to have that information, it wasn't a big deal. Claire would sleep in the lounge room when
Yep.
people were talking around her and stuff like that. So what they can learn from me is that I have full confidence in them. And I tell myself that every day. They know what they're doing.
Yep.
And so if you believe they know what they're doing and they're safe, their babies are safe, they're well, their partners are supportive, all of that, you don't need to be this overseer of stuff.
Mm.
You're just there if they want to ask you a question.
Yep.
Like what most questions have not been, how do I do this or whatever? It's like, did we do this when we were babies? What were we like when that kind of conversations coming up. And of course, they look at me and just shake their heads with, how the hell did you do it with two?
You just had to, right? Like, if they were crying, you just had
Had
to
to.
deal with the one that was crying the loudest, or, you know,
Yeah.
um, and I used to, I don't know about you, but I had like these secure rockers where I would clip the babies, my twins, into these rockers, and then I would put them on the floor in the bathroom
Mm.
so I could have a shower, but I could see them and they couldn't get out of their rockers because otherwise
Yeah.
I wouldn't get a shower in a day, like, because sometimes they wouldn't sleep,
Yeah.
and so you can't wait until they have a sleep. So, yeah, you just kinda
Mm.
when you've got 2, you just have to find a way.
Do what you can. Yeah.
That's right. And I've only minded both babies once together, and both the fathers have been like, "No, no, no, it'll be too much, it'll be too much." And the girls sort of just laugh, say, "If anyone can mind 2 babies at once, it's mum." But they screamed for, I've told them it was like a 2-act play. The first act was absolute horror. They both screamed and screamed. Luna just looks at Matilda like, "What the hell are you? Why are you here?" Pokes her, and it's hilarious. And then the second act was quite calm and nice after Matilda had a sleep.
Oh, lovely.
But it was
Oh,
mental.
yeah.
I had them climbing all over me, and I had to, remind myself, you can't just leave that one on the lounge because she's rolling. And yeah,
Yeah.
it all came back to me.
Yeah, the chaos. I can't imagine how much, it must have been.
And it doesn't bother me, like noise, a crying baby doesn't bother me. If it's just me and the baby, I wouldn't want the girls to walk in while baby's crying or
Mm,
whatever. But if I'm just there with the crying baby and they're crying because I'm eating a bottle or something, that kind of thing doesn't bother me.
mm. It sounds like grandmotherhood really you're really enjoying it. And do
Yeah.
you feel just more, I guess that detachment from them not being your direct responsibility just makes the whole experience a bit more relaxing or fun, knowing that they can go back
Yeah,
to.
it was interesting with, Luna being born first.
Mm,
We didn't know really, both grandmothers
mm.
didn't really know what our role was going to be and when we could step in or when, we could visit, all of that kind of stuff. But
Yeah,
all of that's relaxed. And with Claire, it's been it's been her partner who has been in contact with me a lot.
funny.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's
And he's
funny.
like, "Can you please tell your daughter that you are interested and available and that this is why you're on long service leave?" Because Claire doesn't wanna ask me. She doesn't wanna ask me stuff, and I've told her I didn't take this leave to watch Netflix. I did that during COVID. So this leave is to support them in whatever
Yeah.
way I can.
Oh, that's just
It's so
beautiful.
good. Yeah, yeah, I
Yeah.
just love hearing about that. It's such a having a capable grandmother is such a privilege, and yeah, the girls are so lucky, and yeah, I think it's amazing. I was very lucky too with both grandmothers on both sides. But has there been any grandmotherly competition? Is there any, someone gets to see baby
Oh,
more or not?
no,
Is that
we
all good?
joke about no, 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 and we can, because I have good relationships with both the other
Excellent.
grandmothers,
Yeah.
we can just make jokes of that. We can
Oh, that's
just and
lovely.
the girls do too. I'm sure they tell all of us that we're their favourite and,
Yeah.
all of this buttering up, I can see straight through it all.
It's so lovely that you were able to have the long service leave and be able to take that time. I know my parents both were very hands-on grandparents, but they did it around their full-time work. So I was studying at uni with our
Oh,
son,
that's tough.
and my mum worked in the inner west, and I went to uni at the Catholic uni at Strathfield. And so I used to take our son to my mum's office and
Huh.
just past Strathfield, and drop him off, and then I would go back to uni, and my dad would go and pick my son up from my mum's office and take him home, and then my husband would pick our
Wow.
son up.
Convoluted.
Oh, it was crazy, but, incredibly hands-on, and it was just a beautiful time, and they all have such a lovely relationship with my parents and, their other grandparents now as adults. It's really quite sweet
Yeah,
to see
really
that
important.
as they
Mm,
grow up, that
mm.
closeness that they
Bond.
have. So,
Mm.
yeah.
So, I guess moving on from your role as a grandma, to the fact that you have worked as an English teacher for most of your life, and is this like, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're sort of planning for retirement years ahead. How does this kind of feel personally to you? And what do you want the younger women to know about climbing that career ladder? Is there any advice you want to share?
Well, I'm certainly ready to retire. Friends of mine who have retired, I've said to them, "How do you know it's time?" And they say, "You'll know."
Yeah.
And you do. You know, you need a lot of patience to be teaching teenagers,
Mm.
especially now. I think it's harder, but I'll just do some casual teaching, hopefully a bit of travel and stuff, because my husband's not quite ready to retire yet, so we're not on the same page there.
Mm.
What I'd say to younger women, and I work with a lot of young women,
Yeah.
and I love their company, and I don't want them to not be working. I would say, you know, it's a wave. There's times when you need to lean in and times when you need to lean out. A lot of women will think, once my children start school, then I can lean into my career. But when your kids are in primary school, it's the busiest time of your life.
Mm.
And I worked part-time when the girls were in primary school because I wanted to be able to go to the sports carnival, do reading groups or whatever. I wanted to do all of that stuff. I believed that if the kids saw that I thought that their education was important, that they would take it seriously.
Mm.
So it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. So don't feel as though you have to be a principal when your kids are in primary school
Yeah.
themselves. Try and balance it a little bit. Take it easy.
Mm.
Don't try and do everything. I've seen women at work that have got 3 young children and they're going for a promotion. And I think, just take it easy. But I see young people now, their relationships with their partners is the communication's good and you can share some jobs but don't be a martyr. Don't build resentment. If things are tough, just sit down and talk it out. Say,
Mm.
I really need some help at the moment and try and work some things out
Yeah, not try and do
together,
everything
a
yourself.
team.
Yeah, a team. Great. Yeah.
I'm certainly finding that, you know, I've got all 3 of mine through school now. My twins finished their HSC last year, and I'm certainly finding that I have an awful lot more time for myself to be able to start leaning into my own career, whereas when they were younger,
Yes.
it was just so much harder. As you say, there's the commitments around school and sport and all of those extracurricular things that you try and squeeze in. I couldn't possibly have leaned into my career at the same time as trying to do all of those things.
Mm.
Um, I actually didn't
Yeah.
work. I stepped right out of the workforce, and I look back, and my advice to all young women thinking about having children or you know, having young babies is don't do what I did. Don't step out altogether, because I found I had nothing
Yeah, I
for
think
myself.
part-time.
Mm.
Yeah, I think part-time's ideal. But what I
Mm.
would say to younger women too is, and I see this through social media and stuff, we're no different. We had the same aspirations. This rubbish with all these animosity towards boomers and all of that's rubbish. We
Yeah.
struggled to buy a house. I know it's harder. I do know it's harder with, I think debt is disgraceful, but we're not the enemy. We were supported by our mothers
Yeah.
and we just want to support them in their choices, but we're not these judgy Karens that we are,
Oh, we
you
hate
know,
We're not sure. I don't like the
apologize.
Karen thing, and ageism just generally is just bad. And I think
Yeah.
you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, there needs often the generations get pitted against each other just for kind of media clicks and things. I don't think it's fair, and
Not
it's
helpful either.
No,
not
I don't,
helpful.
it's not helpful. And neither is the other divisions of, you know, left and right, men and women.
Yeah.
Um, that it's not helpful. We're not one thing or the other.
Yeah, a
Yeah.
bit more gray
Mm.
area, and maybe listening and understanding would
Yeah.
be helpful.
Two things can be true at the same time, and we can be career women and we can also be wanting to be in with our children as well. When you're really leaning into a career, if you've got a super supportive partner, then that really helps as well. You know, there might be
Yeah.
young women listening who kind of go, oh, but I can lean right into my career because they have, you know, dad or a partner, wife,
Yeah.
whatever, who is at home with them, who is really helping them to be able to lean into their career at that moment in their lives. So, it's
And absolutely at the other end too, I know that there'll be people that are critical of me giving up work and spending all this time with my grandchildren and where's my identity, all of that kind of stuff. You can still have an identity and support your daughters. It's not one or the other.
when you look ahead to the future, what would you like to see for your granddaughters, especially for your granddaughters, but, change in general? What would you like to see for women going forward?
What I think a lot about, as everybody does, is the impact of social media. And
Yeah.
I think
Mm.
I'm really hoping that the pendulum has swung with all this talk about people getting off Twitter and stuff. I think is fabulous.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
just that I hope there's more in real life stuff that they experience,
Mm.
less online, more in IRL stuff. And I hope that this next generation sees that communication and relationships and community is really important, and that it's more cool than being in
Yeah.
your bedroom on your phone. That's what
Yeah.
I love to see. Love to see a generation where men and women come together and we're not pitted against each other with all of this rubbish. Yeah, just too much emphasis on individuals. We need to get back to a community. And if we do that, we'll be more of a team.
Mm.
Yeah.
Everybody, everyone on social media is pitted against men and women against each other. But
Mm.
that's not my experience in real life.
Yeah.
So that's what I hope. That's what I really hope. I look at these girls and I think, what will they be like as teenagers?
Mm.
How hard will it be a teenager for them? And
Mm.
I think long and hard about that. And for example, um, you know, women changing their faces and fillers in lips and all of that kind of stuff. And I try to extrapolate what that might look like.
Mm.
And I hope that it actually goes backwards, that people actually stop this silliness and start to look more internally, more as a community, less about what your face looks like and more about what kind of person you are.
Mm.
Let's hope.
If
Mm.
there's any hope, I did see recently a news story that I think it was Nokia. I don't know which phone company it was, but they actually, for the first time, they released what they're calling a dumb phone, which simply makes phone calls and texts.
Mhm.
There's no
Yeah.
connectivity to the internet. And so it's, like
Yeah.
the
Going
phones
back.
that we first had,
Mm.
Yeah.
because,
Yeah.
and this was purely in demand because of the younger generation switching off from technology and only wanting to be able to be contacted by people through phone calls and texts, and not having the
Yeah.
phone to doom scroll and all of those things. So
Mm.
maybe if the
Yes.
big corporations and the companies are releasing those phones, they're not doing that, like, because
Yeah.
they're altruistic and they're being really nice. They're doing that because there's a market for it.
Mm.
So
Mm.
maybe
There's a
those
demand. Yep.
Mm.
lovely things will come to fruition, and it would be really nice to see us all, come together as a community rather than, as you say, pitted against each other.
Yeah, I hope that that
Yeah, I hope
generation,
so.
yeah, can see the damage that social media is done, for their parents, or at least, the older women, and who've had to, yeah, look at other faces. We see too much, probably. Like, I know you spoke about the information that's available when you spoke about Jessie and Clare having babies, but sometimes there is just such it's almost too much, isn't it? It's too much to take in. We're looking at all these faces of these 50, 60-year-old women that, when we grew up, we didn't have the access, we didn't see so
Mm.
much content. And it is sometimes just overwhelming. And I hope that, yeah, the younger people can see that they need to step back and just, yeah, be more in the moment, or with their community, with their family, with their friends in real life, as opposed to just being overwhelmed by screens.
Absolutely, and the girls are already talking about screens with their
Mm.
kids because
Yeah.
that our boys are early childhood educators, and so they know a little bit about the research and keeping kids off screens and stuff, and you can
Mm.
see it with Luna at the age she is. She loves the phone,
Of
and
course.
Jess
Yep.
has said, it's one of my rules. If I
Mm.
play music on my phone when I'm with her, I hide the phone.
Yep.
Mm.
So she can listen to the music, but she's not quite sure where it's coming from.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
they will grab, and it's not just phones, like she'll do it with the remote control as well. So it's
Mm.
buttons. It's
Yeah.
buttons. That's a natural thing kids love at that
Mm.
age, pressing things and
Exploring. Yep.
whatever. But yeah, but the social media stuff, we've got to, and it'll be up to Claire and their partners.
Mm.
It'll be up to them sticking to rules and saying, "No, it's not good for you. Let's do something else."
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
And it's gonna
At
be
least
hard.
mixing it up. We have one more question to ask you. We ask this of every guest, regardless of their age, and we are called The Change podcast, and we want to know what your feelings are towards the change, commonly known as menopause or perimenopause, and what advice you might have for younger women who might just be approaching it.
It's really interesting. I've been thinking about this,
Mm.
with all of my contemporaries.
Mhm.
We did not talk about it.
Mm.
Mm.
We talk about it now. I have a girlfriend who said, I love my husband, but at one point, I wanted to kill him. I thought of actually what instrument I would murder him with, and she went to a doctor and she said to the doctor, "I love my husband, but I want to kill him." And still,
Wow.
menopause was discussed.
Mm.
Wow.
It wasn't discussed. I have another girlfriend who's struggled with anxiety and depression, and she didn't as a younger person. And she said never, where all the psychiatrists uh, and herbalists and everyone that she was going to, no one mentioned a connection between what she was going through and menopause. So
Interesting.
Wow.
this is
Mm.
my contemporaries. We're
Mm.
64 years old.
Beautiful.
I was very lucky. I went through menopause like my mother, which was just period stopped and that was it.
Wow.
I did struggle with insomnia, which I now look back on and think, oh, maybe that was menopause.
Mm.
Yep.
And a lot of women say that they went through menopause really easily, and then the people around them just laugh and say, "No, you didn't. No, you
You
didn't.
just
You were a
forgotten.
witch. You were." Yeah, but we didn't talk about it. So it's wonderful. But I saw menopause as a relief
Mm.
because I had painful heavy periods, those things that we just put up with.
Yep.
I loved that there was no need for contraception anymore. But I never had a medical person ever raise it with me,
Wow.
ever even ask, have you are you now menopausal?
Mm.
And as for perimenopause, not even
Mm.
it didn't that
Wasn't a
language
thing.
didn't even exist.
Mm.
No,
Well,
it really didn't.
yeah, I'd say I'd say to younger women, use that access to information that you've got and just be self-aware. There was one study that came out that connected it to breast cancer, and therefore HRT was just seen as bad,
Mm.
Mm.
which is crazy. Your hormones are changing, your body's changing, you've got more risk of osteoporosis, and the women should have this information.
Yeah, that's right.
Women's health generally needs way more research, and it needs to be talked about way more. We just put up with an incredible amount. I think those ads are really interesting where they talk about, I think it's Nurofen or something, and they talk
Yes,
about
it is. It
the
is.
pain gap,
Yep.
and that's genius marketing.
Yeah, it really
But
is.
yeah, women do a lot of things and many doctors don't seem to offer it as a suggestion, like hormone replacement therapy or
Mm.
taking estrogen or more calcium or
Yeah.
Yeah, they're still kind of catching
yeah,
up with
it's
that
just
information. Yeah, it's definitely changing. You're right, but yes, women can be a bit more armed with that information and go to their GP and say, no, I want to talk about this now.
Yeah.
It's a bit easier to do that.
And it's really interesting that you mentioned like all of those brain related symptoms, like even insomnia, when you think about it, it's a brain related symptom, and, you know, anxiety, rage, depression. There's, you know, lots of women talk about a brain fog, you know, walking into a room, forgetting what you're there for, completely not, you know. And I saw over the weekend, and I mean, as much as social media is quite, you know, I have a very fraught relationship with social media. I love it and I hate it at the same time. But I saw, I think it was the menopause doctor, Dr. Louise Newsom from the UK. She posted a slide and she's done some research with over 6,000 women, and overwhelmingly this slide, the largest symptoms that were coming out in this word cloud were all brain related symptoms that are related to menopause. And you know, so many of us, I certainly just thought, oh well, it's just, you know, my periods will stop. It wasn't.
Hot flushes as well. That was the other one.
And my periods would stop, kind of thing. And it really didn't occur to me that there would be all these brain related things, and how much estrogen plays a part in those things, and also in, as you say, our bone health, our heart health, there's so much that estrogen does in our bodies that we're just unaware of. That is a good thing that we're becoming more aware of it now, I think.
Are you sleeping well now? How's your insomnia?
Oh, much better.
Oh, good.
Much better.
Glad to hear it.
I did. I was lucky. I was very lucky to not have a lot of I never had a hot flush.
Oh.
And I know people, and that's what's interesting too, is that menopause, just like menstruation, just like childbirth, just like pregnancy, it's everybody. Everyone's bodies deal with these things differently. So all you can do is collect information and chat to people. We need to be the ones educating the doctors, I think. I heard her on a podcast. I think she was interviewed by The Imperfects.
She was. I listened to that too.
Yes. Yeah, Dr. Louise Newsom was. It was a fabulous podcast.
Yeah, she was very good. She really knows her stuff.
She really does.
We need some more of her in Australia, I think.
Well, Anne, thank you. Thank you so much for coming on the change.
So much.
Yeah, sharing your wisdom as a grandmother. And it's been
the woman
a pleasure.
And the mum to two of our very favourite people as well.
Oh, lovely. Thank you.
As expected, Laura, we just had a fabulous chat. I always feel refreshed when I speak to Anne. I've run into her a few times at various different occasions. She's just a breath of fresh air, I think, you know, sometimes.
Yeah, she's got a real energy. She's a woman in her 60s, but that, you know, we're very much against ageism on this podcast, but I think it's really great to talk to a bit of every age for their experience, life experience. And Anne's lived through a lot of stuff, and she's got things to say that are as relevant and interesting as a woman of any age. And it was good to hear her talking about the difference between grandmotherhood and motherhood.
Absolutely. And, you know, I thought it was interesting when she was talking about, you know, young women today thinking that they have to do everything all really quickly and very early, and just really understanding that there's going to be seasons in your life when you can lean in and lean out, and that life is a bit of a marathon rather than a sprint. And, you know, that for Anne, what worked for her and their family was that she worked part-time when the kids were little, and because she was a teacher, and she felt that that was what was really important to them as their, you know, for their family. And I do think it's really good advice for, you know, those following behind us, you know, to really think about that there are seasons in our lives when, you know, things will be a little bit more tricky, I suppose. But when we're leaning into things, other things will fall off, and we have to accept that we can't do it all at the same time. We can have it all over our lifetime, but just not all at the same time.
Oh God, 100%. I so related to that because I have felt perhaps in recent years, like when Leo started school. Leo's now 7, so this is going back a couple of years. I was desperate to get back into my career, and I did, but I also felt like I was going crazy with just there's so much to do,
Mhm.
and I think that I was so desperate to get back in after, so many years of sort of hanging back and being freelance and wanting so much to work, but then doing it and realizing, oh my God, this is so hard, and thinking it was kind of my fault and I wasn't coping. But actually, it's just a lot, isn't it? It's just a lot.
Yep.
And when the kids are little, and yes, they're at school, but like Anne said, just sport, and you want to be there and you want to be able to be part of their lives and listen to them when they come home from school. And it's so difficult when you're wrapped up in work, and like there's no perfect solution here. And
No.
obviously different things work for different people. And if your partner is taking heaps of time off, you may well want to lead into your career throughout your children's childhood. It's
Yep.
like everyone's different. But I think if you can work part-time, or you can lean out a little bit, especially in those early primary years, it's a great thing to be able to do if you can. I agreed.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And, I think Anne just reminds us that not everything has to be perfect all the
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
And, and her views on, social media, like, and we've met Anne through social media,
Mm,
through meeting Jessie and Clare and working at Mamma Mia. And Anne's not saying social media is like terrible and that it's awful and that we shouldn't have it at all. She's just, reflecting how could it be different and how can
mm,
it, when she was thinking forward to life for her granddaughters, she's hoping that life is a little bit more connected in real life rather
mm.
than online connected.
Yeah, I like that too, because I think we're adults, and social media for us was something that came in to our lives as adults. And I think that made such a big difference because we grew up similarly to Anne, even though there's a,
Mhm.
age difference there. There's our childhoods are more like Anne's childhoods than it's going to be my children anyway.
Yeah.
Their childhood is totally different to mine. They love their screens. I really have to monitor it. I have to be very disciplined about how and when they can be on them. And it's such a different childhood. And I can see attention spans would be very challenging for teachers and things when the kids
Yeah.
are so used to just that hit, that adrenaline, that sort of in those endorphins you get from YouTube clips and funny little TikToks that are so engaging, but that it's totally different to how we used to just read books and watch long form movies that went for 3 hours and things. Like we had to wait for an hour for our Amstrad computer to load one game. We had to have patience. The
And
kids
there was
don't.
that
Yeah.
was that noise. Kids today will never know the noise of the
Oh, the
internet
internet
joining.
loading. Yeah. That's right. It's so
Yeah,
different, isn't it? So I
yeah,
guess, yeah, she makes a good point.
yeah.
Absolutely, that social media is can be good, but there has to be something that changes, whether it's from, like you said, from the top, from like brands realizing that there is a demand for the dumb phones, and like for children and youth to want to just reconnect with each other, on a personal level. There's so much benefit, so much joy in community and friendship without devices.
Absolutely.
There has to be a mix, doesn't there?
Absolutely. And, I think Anne just radiates joy when she talks about being a grandmother and looking at the years ahead of, they're not terrible. You know, she's looking forward to travel and she's looking forward to seeing her granddaughters grow and her sons. And, everyone just, yeah, she's really looking forward to what's next for Anne, which is a really lovely stage, I think, to be in.
Yeah, and it's sort of inspirational, isn't it, for us in our midlives to go, you know what, the 60s actually look pretty cool. She makes it look, she's got lots of energy. Her grandkids are crawling all over her. She's able to take that time out of work and travel, but also be there for her daughters and her granddaughters. And I think that's great. And what she said about generations as well, pitted against each other, how it's such a valid point to think, well, she did all these things, many years ago, and we do owe a debt of gratitude to the women of that generation and above. And we need to sometimes just listen and stop it with the boomer and the Karen calls and all the things that the younger generations and us can be guilty of. So I think it's really important to just, listen and also not be afraid of what's ahead. It's not all bad.
Not at all. And I think it is a little bit like the line out of the Barbie movie, that mothers stand still so that their daughters can move forward or see where their mothers have come from. I'm misquoting that terribly, but anyone who's seen the Barbie movie
Yes.
will know the line.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah. It was, Anne's great. It was a great chat and she was a great guest.
Thanks for listening to The Change, a fully independent podcast. Whether you're seeking inspiration, curious about change, or just here for the great banter, we'd love you to make The Change your new go-to podcast.
And even better, send us your voice notes or questions about change. We'll use them on the show. Email us at changepod2023@gmail.com or DM us on Instagram at _change_pod. Find us wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram for more on The Change.